I'll get right down to the bottom line of my homily today. Very simply put, it's this. In today's world, we are witnessing a very aggressive attempt to deny sin. More than ever in this Lent that's approaching, we need a personal meeting with Jesus Christ, who is God, and He is the only one who forgives sin. Now, there's a popular myth that's been going around about the person of Jesus, and it usually runs along these lines. The original Jesus was a kindly man who wanted to help people face their problems, feel good about themselves, and get along with each other. He's sort of portrayed as a first century Dr. Phil, I guess. And then, after Jesus had died, no mention of his resurrection, his followers began to add miracles to the stories of his teachings, which then gradually divinized him, made him God, until St. Paul finally came along and developed a full-blown theology which made him into God. That's all bunk. It's a bunch of lies. But that's what's taught in a lot of places. Many of our universities and colleges. You wouldn't believe, and I hear about it from the students who go to these places of higher learning, the agendas that some of our college professors have against. First, it's always the Catholic Church first. We are always on the top of the list. Many times they're former Catholics themselves with wonderful axes to grind. And then the next attack is on Christianity itself. And finally on God. You won't believe what's being poisoned into the minds of our young adults who even go to some of these Catholic universities. But that's for another time. This morning's gospel explodes this myth about Jesus that's been going around, this big lie. Now, by most scholarly accounts, St. Mark was probably the first one to write his gospel. It certainly is the shortest, the plainest, and the most unadorned. Yet right from the outset, Mark gives us a very strong assertion of Jesus' divinity, that he indeed is God, and that he forgives men's sins. Now that might seem innocuous to us, but that might because we're beginning to forget what sin really is in this culture that we live in. Now, suppose the man that was lowered through the roof in that house in our gospel had been a swindler who had cheated all those locals out of their life savings. And if you were one of the victims, sorry as you might feel about this sick man's present condition, you'd probably still resent Jesus' absolution of him. I suppose it would be as if I had ministered to a serial killer and then I announced, "I forgive you." Family members of those who had been murdered would probably react quite bitterly. I suppose in my case, their anger would be justified. But with Jesus, who ultimately is the one who forgives all sin, the matter is quite different. You see, robbery and murder offend him directly, even more than the victims. Why? Because he is God, and he is the source of all life, and he is the creator of all things. So the people back then were right to ask, who but God alone can forgive sin? Accepting Jesus as God, the only one who can forgive sins. And that has huge implications. I would like to just draw upon one of those implications, especially as we are on the threshold of the season of Lent. If we really accept Jesus as God, it means that we stand in a very radically different posture from the rest of this unbelieving world. We indeed live in a society that is attempting, no longer subtly, to deny sin. And if we deny sin, then we deny that, his death on that cross, and why he did it. We're in a spiritual combat. My friends, the time is ripe for us to finally draw the line in the sand. We need to put our foot down and stop being just passive complainers about the way the world is going. Most of us Catholics tend to be like that. And just passively letting things happen is not going to change anything. We have to affirm our faith. If we don't know that faith, we need to reacquaint ourselves with it so that we can defend that faith. Most of our young adults who go to these colleges and universities, when their faith is attacked by those professors and teachers, they can't defend that faith because they don't know that faith. And that's why we're losing. We cannot be ignorant about the faith. This Lent is going to be an important one in this world. This Lent of 2012 is a time where we need, first of all, to inaugurate in a very active way the spiritual disciplines of prayer, fasting, and doing good works. It's not just an option. It's not just, it's something I do on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. It's something we need to inaugurate in our lives every day. Because without those things, we are weak, and that's why the evil one is winning right now. We need to do something, and that's where it begins, right there. As I said, we are witnessing before our very eyes in this culture of this world that we live in a massive undertaking to destroy our faith. Still very subtle, but getting more and more aggressive. We need this Lent more than ever. That's why it's called a penitential season. It's a time for us to do penance, not only for our sins, but for the sins of all people. It is a time where we need to meet Jesus, have a personal encounter with him. He is the only one that can forgive sin. Never forget that.